Hey there, Matt from the Choir Director Corner, and in today's video, we are talking about repertoire ideas for your choir. It's one of the biggest questions that I get in our Facebook group, as well as in our Choir Director Corner community membership. And so in today's video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 favorite choral compositions from 2024. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll also find out where you can get a list to all 22 of my selections from 2024, as well as links to where you can find the music for each selection. There's a little bit for everybody in today's video, as I've tried to vary the difficulty level as well as the voicings on these. So let's dive right into it, shall we? So, some ground rules for this exercise, right? Number one, copyright date needed to be 2024. Because you go to a lot of these publishing websites and they say something is new, but I found compositions that were copyright 2023 or even 2022, right? So, to narrow my focus, I've limited it to copyright 2024 for the purposes of this exercise. Now, I did include some arrangements where maybe there was a previous voicing, but now in 2024, there is a new voicing of that arrangement. So you'll see a couple of these pieces where maybe the original arrangement was a couple years ago, but now there is a new voicing in 2024 that I want to make sure that you are aware of. And as I mentioned, this collection includes all voicings and also a variety of difficulty levels in really no particular order. But these are my top 10 favorites. So let's look at them. Number one, we have Becoming You by Bethany Main. So this is SAB with piano, works for SAB for middle school. And I really think if you've got a younger SAB in your high school group, that would be something that this would work for them as well. It's very accessible. It has a sort of a contemporary feel, really some uplifting lyrics. And that I think that is something that your young singers will really relate to and gravitate to. It's encouraging singers to follow their dreams. And really, what's better than that, right? Very accessible vocal ranges and also has a really energetic piano accompaniment that really sort of drives the piece all the way to the very end. So, a lot of things to like about this one, and I think this is something that both you and your singers will love. Becoming You by Bethany Main. Our next selection is Always Keep This Close by Zachary Moore. And there are multiple voicings with this one, but the newest one is SAB. So it's also TTBB, SATB, and SAB. Piano, it also has some optional strings. So if you're teaching in a place where there is a strings program, this might be an opportunity to get them involved as well. Again, it's very accessible, but it has a level of sophistication that I think would make it great for your high school SAB choirs. But I also think it's accessible enough to where your middle school SAB would be able to tackle this as well. It's mostly homophonic, does have some very basic polyphonic sections, and really that gets to like the entrances of the different voice parts where they have to be a little bit independent with some of the entrances, particularly in the middle section of this piece. But it has beautiful melodic lines and a piano accompaniment that really just has this wonderful flow to it. So again, something that your singers are really going to enjoy. And again, this is another one where I really love the message of it. It's the power of music and connection. And the line of lyrics, you make more than music here. And that's something that you could really use to have some really sort of in-depth conversations with your singers. So another great piece, particularly for those SAB ensembles. But if you have TTBB or SATB, definitely look at this one as well. Always Keep This Close by Zachary Moore. Our next selection is actually a piece I just programmed with my young TBB ensemble, and that's Good Timber by Susan Labar. So this is TBB with piano. So if you've got that young tenor bass ensemble like I do, where it's a little bit lighter on the tenor part of it, but lots of baritones, lots of basses, this is a really good fit for them. Just like a lot of Susan Labar's music, it's absolutely gorgeous vocal writing. And the harmonies are very straightforward, so making this very accessible. I have high school, 9th grade and 10th grade. I could even see and experienced middle school TBB ensemble doing that. Yeah, if you've got something at your 7th and 8th grade level. Great, again, like I said, great for that TB ensemble that has more B, more baritone and bass than tenor. And the text is great for this age of singer, right? Especially those young tenors and basses. Sometimes you're dealing with some singers that are a little self-conscious, not just musically, but just personally. And this is a text where it talks about how life experience can really help us grow. And in the end, going through certain challenges and struggles can help make us better in the end, right? The more the storm, the more the strength. That was one of the favorite lines from my choir in this piece. So you've got that young tenor bass ensemble, particularly one where it's a little lighter on the tenor. Make sure you look this one up. Good Timber by Susan Labar. Number 4, we have Haul Away Joe by Zach Stelzer. Now, this is TTBB a cappella. All right, but if you have a young tenor bass ensemble and you see that and you're like, 4 parts, I'm not quite sure, a cappella, I'm not quite sure, don't be scared away by that, right? And there's a number of reasons why. First of all, here's another energetic sea shanty that you can add to your collection of sea shanties for your tenor bass ensemble. It's mostly homophonic. It does have one more sort of independent section where the voice parts do a little bit of their own thing, but the vast majority of this is homophonic, and there is a lot of repetition in this, which really helps to make it accessible. It does have an optional tenor 2 solo, so if you've got a tenor that you've been thinking about featuring, this would be an opportunity for that. And like I said, even though it's 4-part, it's still very accessible. There's lots of part doubling, and like I also mentioned, a lot of repetition in this one to really help those younger ensembles. And it's one of those great pieces that sounds more impressive than maybe what it actually is, so you get a lot of bang for your buck with this one. I did this at the end of last year. And I intended to just do this for a week at the end of the school year after our spring concert. And we were in really good shape for our spring concert. So I got this out early just to kind of sight read through it. And again, my young tenor bass ensemble had done mostly 3-part that year, around 20 singers. And wouldn't you know it, we spent like 2 days on it for like 25 minutes each rehearsal. I didn't touch the piano once. I gave them their starting note. We did it all on solfege. And by the end of the second day, they had it. And our spring concert was in a week. And one of the guys pops up. He's like, "Mr. Walker, could we do this on our spring concert?" And I said, "Yeah, why not? All you have to do is memorize it and you're good to go." And sure enough, in that week, we had it memorized. So even with your young tenor bass ensemble, this is a piece that not only will they love, but you can put it together relatively quickly. And audiences will obviously love it as well. Always, sea shanties are always a big hit. So, Haul Away Joe by Zach Stelzer. Here's the next selection. It's actually multiple selections. This is a set. It's called 5 Sea Songs by Daniel Brimsmead. And, usually it's our tenor basses that get to sing the sea shanties. Why don't our treble groups get to do sea shanties, right? And so here you go. Here's a perfect example by Daniel Brimsmead. SSA with piano, and all together It's about 39 pages long, the set of all five. Yeah. So each piece, I would say, maybe is slightly shorter than your typical choir piece, but you put them all together and it's pretty lengthy. So maybe you have a Masterworks concert. Like we do a Masterworks concert every 2 years. This would be a great set for that, right? Or you could go in and pull out one of the pieces. Or maybe you pull out multiple pieces. Maybe you don't do all five, maybe two or three, right? But your treble group is really going to love these selections. So, three of my favorites out of the five were called Sea Fever, Little Fishes Don't Cry, and then I Wish You a Kinder Sea. Now, these are less homophonic and have some challenging rhythms to them. So, my recommendation would be a high school treble group that has some experience, right? We have a ninth grade treble group and then another treble group that's 10th grade and 11th grade. I don't know that I would try this with the ninth grade ensemble. Maybe there's one in there that's simple enough, right? If you're just going to pull out one. But otherwise, I would look to that high school ensemble that has a little bit of experience in order to handle some of the challenges in these. There's lots of variety in this set, so I would encourage you to have a listen to the whole thing, and maybe you find one or two that are perfect pairings for some of the other things that you have programmed, or maybe you'll just fall in love with the whole set. So, 5 sea songs, Daniel Brimsmead. Let's get our treble groups doing some sea shanties, shall we? Our next selection is Take This Gift by Tracy Wong. Now, the treble arrangement has been around, I think, for a couple of years, but now there is a new SATB arrangement with piano. I've done the treble version, and my singers absolutely loved it, and we put it together relatively quickly. It's very upbeat and rhythmical, a great message of sharing our gift of singing with others, which actually helps if you've got some hesitant singers, because the message of this goes right along with what you're telling them about being more comfortable in singing out, right? And sharing their sound. So it fits right along with that. There's lots of homophonic singing with this one, very straightforward harmonies, again, making it very accessible for your young treble ensemble. And the melody, it's kind of nice, moves through the different parts, which adds some interest, both for the listener but also for the singers as well. It's not just a piece where the melody sits in the soprano one part all the time. So everybody takes their turn, which is kind of fun. And catchy, fun vocal parts that, again, your singers will absolutely love this one. Take This Gift by Tracy Wong. Our next selection is I'm on My Way by Anthony Tressick King. Now, this is a piece where the treble arrangement has been around for a couple of years, but now there is a new SATB arrangement. Both arrangements are with piano, and both also have an optional string bass part. I've actually done both arrangements of this piece and found both of them to be very accessible. So this is a great arrangement of Mahalia Jackson's version of this song from the 1950s. Mahalia Jackson, the preeminent gospel singer of her time, she did a lot of work in the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King, and so this arrangement is based on her version of this tune. Singers will love the up-tempo rhythmical feel, and it has sort of this aggressive nature that they can really sort of sink their teeth into. And altos actually get to sing some melody in this one, which is super fun for them. It's mostly homophonic, with the treble or the tenor bass voices often paired with each other in the SATB arrangement. There are a few challenging rhythms in this, but nothing that's too overwhelming. It's kind of one of these situations where once they've got it, they've got it. Very accessible vocal ranges in both arrangements, particularly in the SAT-B arrangement. The B is really more of a lyric baritone part. Nothing too high, nothing too low. So for our young baritones, this is great. Does have a few opportunities for high notes for our tenors and sopranos. So again, another very accessible piece, but something that your singers will really enjoy singing and audiences will really appreciate as well. I'm on My Way by Anthony Tressick King. Our next composition, Swifter Than Flame by Elaine Hagenberg. I know I am super excited to get this programmed with my treble group. There also is an SAT-B version, both of them with piano. And both versions are a really good mix of homophonic and independent vocal lines. It's very rhythmical, but again, there's enough repetition that it's still very accessible. Now, it does have some part divisi and also some independent vocal lines and some extended vocal ranges. So I think the SAT-B is probably a better choice for ensembles that have a little bit more experience. But the treble version is mostly SSA, only a couple moments of divisi in the alto part. So I think for your treble group that maybe is a little less experienced, this one is still one to look at, right? Looking at the independence of the vocal parts and some of the moments of some slightly challenging rhythms. That would probably be the determining factor if I had a young treble group. But for my 10th and 11th grade treble group, this is something that they're really going to be able to sink their teeth into. They love them some Elaine Hagenberg. So this is going to be another great addition to the treble repertoire and the SAT-B as well. Swifter Than Flame. Our next composition, Climbing Up the Mountain by Stacy Gibbs. Now this is SAT-B a cappella. I actually sing in the ensemble that premiered this piece, and so got to sing this. It was just an absolute joy to sing. Now it's mostly homophonic, with the treble voices and then the tenor bass voices often paired together. So there's a certain level of accessibility with this, even though it's 4-part a cappella. Again, it's rhythmical, but there's enough repetition where it really helps to make it accessible. It's just really wonderful moments of joyful but also powerful singing as well in this spiritual. There are some occasional moments of part divisi and independent vocal lines. Again, probably a better choice for some a little bit more experienced ensembles with this one, but if you've got an SAT-B ensemble that's got some experience, they can put this one together relatively quickly. Climbing Up the Mountain by Stacy Gibbs. If you're looking for something a cappella, this would be a great choice for your SAT-B ensemble. And last but not least, we have Echo by Rob Dietz. If you're not familiar with Rob comes from our contemporary a cappella world, has done all sorts of work with groups like Pentatonics and back in the day, if you're my age or older, the Sing Off, right, on that TV show. So that is that world that he comes from, but you're starting to see now his compositions coming from the contemporary a cappella world into sort of the quote-unquote more mainstream choral literature, and this is one of those pieces. Now, SAATBB a cappella, all right? So it's a super cool piece, but this is probably for your advanced ensembles, yeah? What's really neat about it is that it uses this Latin text. So it has this little bit more traditional feel, especially at the beginning. It's very chant-like, but he uses that Latin text to really connect to more of a contemporary a cappella style, which is really just really extraordinary. It's very unique compared to other things that are out currently in the world of choral repertoire. Now, like I mentioned, due to the part divisi, some of the rhythmical challenges in this, and then also the part independence that's required, this is going to be a better choice for your advanced ensembles. Yeah, but if you've been looking for an a cappella piece that has a little bit more of a contemporary feel that's going to give your group a challenge, this is one that you really need to look at. Echo by Rob Dietz. Now, as I mentioned, there's a full list for you, not just the top 10, but 22 of my favorite compositions from 2024. There's also links to each piece so that you can find the sheet music. Often these links also have recordings that you can listen to, and you can see the preview of the sheet music as well. So for all of that info, go to choirdirectorcorner.com/choral 2024. That's /choral 2024. And I'll make sure that I put the link down in the description as well. And if you want to take a deeper dive into things like choir repertoire, or if you have questions, send me an email, matt@choirdirectorcorner.com. Another resource that we have is our Choir Director Corner community membership. And one of the resources in there is a collection of recommended repertoire lists for a wide variety of voicings, but also organized by difficulty level. And again, in those lists, you're getting a link to the performance so that you can immediately take a look, hear a recording of the piece. So if that is something that you might be interested in, then you need to check out the Choir Director Corner community membership over at choirdirectorcorner.com/membership. Well, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you found some fantastic repertoire ideas for your choir. We'll see you in the next video.